Well, didn't think this was going to happen again anytime soon. I'm back to trucking, or more specifically, back to owner operating. I disappeared for a good long while. Sorry about that. I tried to step out of truck ownership. Things weren't going particularly well, so I kind of said, you know what, screw it. It's time to take a break and reevaluate. What I discovered pretty quickly was that there wasn't really much for me outside of trucking. I had thought maybe I'd be able to find, I don't know, some fulfilling work somewhere. And mostly what I found was just disappointment. Like, this industry is disappointing as well. Don't get me wrong. But at least this industry, I know. So, like, the disappointment is sort of, I guess, expected, for lack of a better way to put it. And that sounds really negative, and I apologize. I don't really mean it to. So I guess I'll just start from, the beginning of the end of the last time I put videos on YouTube. I had done a few videos with my new truck. I did a walk around. About 6 months after that initial walk around video was made, things started going pretty far south. As far as work, as far as my mental health, lots of stuff. I kind of found out, I realized after, a little too late, that my dad and I had put ourselves into a bit of an abusive situation, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, with an employer. So the company I was with at the time when we first started there, we had negotiated what seemed like a pretty good rate at the time. And this is back when the price of diesel was still, $2.50 a gallon in the U.S. Just some spots were just getting to $3 a gallon. So because of that, the rate was pretty okay. It wasn't phenomenal. We weren't gonna strike it rich, but we weren't gonna go bankrupt. However, some caveats to that particular deal were that we didn't get fuel cards, so we were sort of, left to our own devices, left to fend for ourselves as far as getting fuel goes. Which on the plus side helped me discover a lot of smaller, more out of the way or mom and pop stops, like the stop that I was just at, which is called Fuel King in Napoleon, Ohio. I worry. I don't know how much longer it's going to be around, just because it's there was one other truck in the parking lot aside from me, and it's a Saturday, granted, but as I turn left here, you'll see there's a Pilot on the right here, but as I turn left, you'll be able to see the parking lot for the new Loves, and it's a lot more full than the parking lot over here, or at the Fuel King. So, I mean, again, as most people are now sort of, well, I shouldn't say most people, most truck drivers are starting to be, the old guys are getting phased out and replaced with, the stereotypical new guys, rookies, whatever you want to call them, steering wheel holders, right? I mean, again, I don't see a single truck with a long hood in that truck stop. I realize that because I'm set for a widescreen, it's probably hard to see in that parking lot, but it's all Cascadias and T680s. I see one 579 next gen, T680 next gen, but a whole lot of Cascadias, right? So most of the truck drivers that are, in theory, are driving them. Oh, there's a 379 back there. Are the guys that they want the, and this is not, I'm not saying this to disparage those guys, right? They want the one-stop shop. So they got their, their company Fuels with Loves. They got their Loves card for points, for showers, for everything else, right? So like at that point, why would you bother stopping at a different fuel stop, right? Again, like the company I'm with now, they use Love's fuel cards. I didn't need fuel, so I didn't stop. But why would I stop there and get fuel, and then drive another 2 hours up the road to a Petro, which is where I'm going to be going in Gaston, Indiana? That's because the Petros are quieter. The Petro, that Petro still has a sit-down restaurant. At least the last time I was there about 2 months ago. So I always, as far as like the quote-unquote big truck stops goes, I've never minded Petros. But as the industry sort of, I don't know how I would say, like shifted in the last couple of years, right? That's where I was. I got off topic. So because I didn't have fuel cards, again, we sought out like cheaper fuel alternatives, which was great initially. And then my father left that company, and very shortly after, I was sat down and told him I needed to start getting fuel at Flying J's without a fuel card, or I was going to take a rate cut, which of course I didn't agree to. So the argument didn't go anywhere, but again, I want to say about a month later, I was getting kind of shortchanged on freight or on loads, and then I got asked to go to California, and I physically did not have the money in my bank account to put enough fuel in my truck to go to California, let alone get back. So I had to turn down the load, and that was a big no-no. No turning down loads. So I said, okay, well, I guess I quit, because I can't, you're saying I have to take the load. I'm telling you I can't physically take the load. I'll end up out of fuel somewhere in Texas, give or take. I can't afford to go there, right? So that ended pretty poorly. It cost me a lot of money. I went to haul steel for a little bit. That didn't end poorly, but it did cost me a lot of money. And ultimately I decided, my dad really liked my truck. He was in the market for a quote-unquote new truck. So he took over the payments, and I stepped out of truck ownership. However, I had initially gone to work for a friend of my dad's, a friend of mine, family friend, doing local work, which was actually, I was there for about 2 years. It was actually, for the most part, a pretty good deal, until the main customer, started slowing down. So we started having to do a lot more other stuff to fill the void, and it started turning into more OTR isn't the right word for it, because they weren't permanent to leave the province of Ontario, but Ontario is a very big province. So it had me start going up to Thunder Bay, which is a 17-hour drive, in a 367, sorry. So the heavy-duty vocational setback axle truck with a coffin sleeper. I'm 6'2" and over 300 pounds. I don't live in a coffin sleeper. Those bunks were bought specifically by the owner, because we never, just in case, we're out on a job site and it goes later than expected, and we're not going to make it home in time, so we have somewhere to sleep. Other than that, they're not meant, the sleepers were not meant to be used. So being dispatched specifically, with the plan to use those sleepers in mind, was a little rough. I guess I'm going to be slowing down here, because I'm doing 65, everyone was in a mad rush to get around me, and then they just started slowing down after they got in front of me. Traffic's really busy today. I don't know if there's a holiday in the U.S. right now. For a Saturday, traffic's really busy. But anyways, I stepped away from that. There were other reasons. Again, they were that main customer. Again, they started slowing down so much that they're still in business, but just barely, kind of thing. They were good people, don't get me wrong, both the customer and the company, but it wasn't working anymore. And I wanted out of trucking altogether. So I took what Canada would be a DZ, right? So a straight truck. I don't know. I know it's a CDL class. I think it's a class B in the U.S. to drive a straight truck with air brakes, but no fifth wheel or trailer. Working for a brewery, a beer brewery, that was exactly 1 mile from my house, right? So my brother and I have drank their beer, for years. They have a distribution center in the town that I live in, and their brewery is only like maybe 10 miles up the road. So it's like, great, this that'll work out great. I signed up, I got the job, I showed up for my first day of work, and they're like, well, actually, since you have your Class A, we're going to have you drive a Class A truck to Toronto every day, and pick up pallets from a shitty pallet place, and deliver beer to a warehouse, and take beer to a really tight blindside dock that we do for co-pack, where they'll package multiple different types of beer together like a combo pack. I'm like, well, this isn't what I signed up to do. Like, I applied for the DZ beer, like delivery driver, so you're delivering beer to bars and stuff, kegs to bars, cans to Canada. At least Ontario has two separate like alcohol stores. So there's the beer store, which is specifically beer, mostly like domestic imported, a few craft beers, but mostly just like the bigger names. And then we have the LCBO, which is like wine, spirits, all that stuff. They also carry a lot of craft beers. So yeah, they delivered to the LCBO and then bars, right? And they said, yeah, like we're gonna get you in that. It's just right now we need a shunt guy, like a guy to move these, do the Class A stuff. So we're just gonna have you do that temporarily. And then about 2 weeks later, they hired another guy who did not have his Class A to do the delivery driver job. And that's when they sat me down and said, yeah, you're gonna be doing this permanently. So I walked away. I tried to get away from driving an 18-wheeler, and I got like forced into it. So I worked there for about 2 or 3 months. Realized that what I was making in a week as a company driver with a semi truck, I was making in about 2 weeks there. Yes, I was home every night. Usually, I was done by like about 5 p.m. and we didn't work weekends, which was great. However, there was also a lot of micromanaging. I was ostensibly the most senior truck driver there, in that I was the only, myself and the supervisors, like, I don't know, second in command, were the only two people on the property with a CDL, at least a Class A CDL, sorry. And he was never been a truck driver. Like, he's had his Class A because he got it years ago, just like a lot of old timers do, where they kind of collect licenses, because you never know. He's also got his pilot's license and stuff, but he's not a truck driver, right? So, and the truck was, sorry, I lied. There was one other Class A guy there. I was the most senior because I had the most actual truck driving experience. But there was one other guy with his Class A that also did some of the 18-wheeler work. So we shared a truck, right? We had two different day cab Cascadias. One with the big horsepower 455 DD whatever the fuck it is, DD13, I'm assuming, with the 18 or with the 12-speed automated, and then the other one had like a 430 or something in it, whatever the next tier down for horsepower is. So we used the smaller horsepower for shunt runs back and forth to the brewery, and then the big horsepower 455 for going to the city. And we would alternate basically every day, because there was like city work every day, and neither of us wanted to do it, so we took turns, right? So I got written up because the other driver, and again, I'm not saying this to throw him under the bus, I had no problem with it. He had a mug, like a coffee mug, a thermos, that looked, I think it was a Tim Hortons thermos, so it looked like a disposable Tim Hortons cup, but as soon as you touch it, like you can tell, it's a hard, a thick plastic thermos. He had that in the cup holder, and he had a rolled up newspaper next to the seat. So when we bump a dock, you might be sitting there for an hour or two waiting for the loader to unload the truck. So he liked to read the newspaper. That was it. Literally, that was it. There was a set of cones next to the seat, close to the passenger side. And then there was a pocket for paperwork, so that was fine. I'm trying to think there was something on the passenger seat, but again, it was because there's no storage compartments in the truck. It was something that the truck needed. So the second command took photos of the newspaper and the cup and wrote me up for the truck being an absolute disaster inside. When I questioned him on it, trying to determine am I just not seeing, like, is this, is the floor dirty? Like, am I somehow just not seeing what he's seeing? He's like, no, it's the cup and the newspaper. Like, are you for real? Like, it's not a disaster, it's a cup and it's a newspaper. Neither of which are mine. Well, why didn't you rat out, well, you didn't word it that way, but why didn't you rat out the other guys? Because, I didn't think it was something that needed to be complained about, because him having a coffee mug in there doesn't bother me any. We share the truck. Like, he makes it, he grabs it, makes a coffee in the morning, goes to work with his coffee. We have a coffee maker at the office, in the yard, whatever you want to call it. So, he brings it inside, washes it quick, makes himself a fresh cup of coffee, and takes off. And it didn't bother me in the slightest. The newspaper's neatly rolled up and tucked in under the seat. Like, the guy likes to read the newspaper. I guess you could argue that the newspaper after a couple of days would be obsolete, but it just didn't really make a lot of sense to me for that to be something that I would complain about. Do you know what I mean? Like, that wasn't something that I would consider to be a problem. So then I was written up for 3 separate things. The next one was my logbook wasn't annotated, so I had a day where we had a rental truck that didn't have an e-log in it. So I had to use paper logs. Well, I did 4 separate trips from the yard, 10 miles up the road to the brewery. I'd be there for half an hour, come back to the yard for half an hour, and go back. So my my logbook looked like you gave an extra sketch to a crackhead. Like, it was just up, down, up, down, up, down. So, there wasn't room to annotate, Creemore Brewery on duty. You know what I mean? It wasn't working. So, I hadn't done it, right? That was the only thing. It was, well, you can't do that. Okay, well, I'll fix it if that's what you want. So, found a way to annotate it, all fixed. He's like, perfect. And then, like I said, it was like a week later, he puts it on the write-up. It's like, that really upset me. Like, okay. And then the last one was pellets. So when I initially started, again, my job description when I applied was to come in the morning, and the warehouse staff would organize based on basically how you'd load the truck. So they had rows for each of the routes. So you would come in, you'd find your route, you'd go to your row, and basically you'd load it like the way it was set up. So the pallet at the end of the row, right, the first one you'd grab with the pallet jack would be the one that goes in the front of the truck. That's your last delivery. So then you'd fill up the truck that way, and take the paperwork, get off, and go out and start making deliveries. So the delivery drivers did not need a grasp of general warehousing or inventory. They were, basically what they needed was already laid out for them. All they had to do was show up, put it in the truck, and make sure they delivered the correct one, right? Because I was taking full pallet loads of product to a distribution center in Toronto, just north of Toronto, and to a co-packing center in Toronto. I guess it was more like Oakville, but either way, I was supposed to have extensive knowledge of warehousing. But again, I know that I'm not good at that. It's part of the reason why I didn't say anything about being there as a warehouse worker, why I'd still, again, when I didn't want to truck drive a vehicle at all anymore for work, why I had still taken the delivery driver job, was because I knew that I wasn't good, and I'm still not good, at counting and remembering numbers and managing inventory. I have ADHD, it's really hard for me to do. So once I got into that position, again, I was starting to get put under pressure to become better at something that I stated from the get-go that I was, I've never been good at and have never been able to improve So this particular, we had another guy who worked in the warehouse. There was multiple warehouse staff, but one guy who was kind of mainly in charge of inventory. So we had an order come through to go to the distribution center. One of the ladies in the office printed it out. Right, she receives the order, she prints out the order, and she brings it out to me and the other warehousing guy. So I was not licensed yet to drive the forklifts. So he was bringing he had the paperwork. He grabbed the pallets I needed. He brought them down. I would mark them off on a second copy of the paperwork and use a pallet jack to put them in the trailer. So we go through the whole system. Everything's good. We're good to go. I go and deliver the product. Nobody says anything. We're good to go. A week later, when I got written up, it was revealed that there was one extra pallet on there that shouldn't have gone. I was like, okay, so how does this happen? Well, you didn't catch it. Okay, the paperwork here states that, well, it doesn't matter what the paperwork states. You're supposed to know that shouldn't have been on there. How is it that I'm not supposed to know? Or how is it that I'm supposed to know, right? If the paperwork states that this is how many pallets, all these numbers, right? All the pallets are numbered, everything lines up. There was no, well, this that says I need, 2 pallets of this beer, but we only have 1.5 in inventory or something, or this one says we need pallets number 455 and 456, but we have 455 and 457. What's going on here? No, everything lined up, right? Well, the lady in the office claimed that she hadn't messed it up, that myself and the other shipper had somehow messed it up. I provided a copy of the paperwork, and I was told we don't really care. So I just told them I'd think about it, as far as signing my write-up, went home and never went back there again. Which is really unfortunate because, again, that probably could have turned into something that I could have spent, I've been relatively happy at. I was getting my free time outside of work. The money was terrible, but I was making ends meet, and not there was they offered from day one you got 3 weeks paid vacation. There were lots of perks there, lots of free beer, all that other shit. But it just maybe I'm proud, I don't know, but it was really hard for me to have somebody who has very little experience, and now again because for so long as a OTR truck driver, right? Most of the situations I've been in where somebody gives me grief for something I have no control over, and they kind of don't have to care whether it's something I have control over or not, I can basically tell them to fuck off because I've been self-employed and therefore a contractor. It's like, well, fuck you then. I'll take the truck and leave, right? I don't like doing that, but that's always been an option, right? Where working, it was hard as an employee to, have an employer sit me down and tell me all about how bad at my job I am, and then provide a list of things that had, partially had nothing to do with me, or really anybody else. The pallet was a genuine mistake by all of us involved. It's not it's unfortunate and it's costly, don't get me wrong. A pallet of beer, especially in Canada, is not cheap, but it'll still get sold, they'll still get the money for it. It's just, it was meant to go somewhere else. But that's ultimately, that was everybody's, not one mistake. Again, it was on the paperwork, so there is no, one of us would have had to have had some sort of just divine intuition to just sort of, everything seems perfect, it's too perfect, something must be wrong, and then figure out without any sort of documentation saying anything to compare it to just arbitrarily decide which pallet, which of the pallets is the correct one that needs to be pulled off the trailer, right? Because again, even if we'd somehow figured out that a pallet was on there that shouldn't be, nowhere could we, was there any documentation that said what pallet is not supposed to be on there, because everything showed up as being required on the trailer. So I went and hauled potatoes for a year, which was a really good job, and I probably should have never quit it. It was working for a kind of a bit of a prestigious company, I guess, called WD Potato in Ontario. They're big, kind of, I guess a lot of the big draw for a lot of people is that they still drive long hood trucks. So they have a couple of sloped hood trucks for spares and like a lot of their guys that run the Eastern Seaboard. But the entire fleet, for the most part, is W9s. They got a mixture of W9Ls and B hoods. Again, a few different. They got a couple of 389s, but the big thing was they still ran and had several operating 379s and older W900s as company trucks. Right now, again, they were for the most part delegated to spares. Right. So when I started, I was putting the W900D with a PACCAR, because I can't escape PACCARs. There's a PACCAR in this very truck I'm in now. And it was a great truck. Like it ran good. It worked well. I had really no issues with it. Because it was a 2016, it was maybe a touch. I shouldn't say a touch underpowered. I mean, the 2016 to 2017 model year saw a 10 horsepower boost, which isn't really much. But we were pulling 5-axle trailers, which in Canada, at least in Ontario, if the lift axles are steerable, you basically have as many axles on the ground as you want. So we could gross 140,000 pounds, or 140. I think we're permitted for 145 or 147. And I would basically just run like potatoes either from the yard or from any of the potato farms that were all around southern Ontario to like basically potato chip plants. Right? There's a Frito-Lay plant that we go to, and then there was like a dollar store chip plant. And that was like golden. Like that, again, it paid well. I was making in 1 week, but I was making more than what I was making in 2 weeks at the brewery. I was driving a nice truck. Right, I was treated well. I guess the trade-off was that there were a lot of goofy hours. You get to do a delivery at noon. It's like, okay, you delivered for noon, go back to the yard, grab another trailer, and you're going to deliver at 2 a.m. So it's like, holy fucking shit. Like, again, you can make it work legally, right? But it was like, this is a bit odd. Like, you'd go down there and sleep on the side of the road and then pull in at your appointment time and you show up, go to bed for 4 hours, get up for 2 hours to start your unloading process, go back to bed, get up when they knock on your door, when they're done unloading you, move out of the way, sleep for another couple hours and go, which I complained about a fair bit while I worked there. It's like my dad and my brother, but realistically that wasn't bad. I found out later on while I was working there that technically when we're unloading, at least at the Frito-Lay plant, we were supposed to be up there and doing it. Like we were supposed to be supervising things, but I guess after, like this was years ago, they decided that no, like if we're gonna schedule the drivers to be unloading trailers while they're asleep, then the drivers should be asleep. Right? The guys will get up and back into the dock and hook the trailer up, but once they're hooked up and you're ready to start unloading potatoes, like they're going to bed, right? So really wasn't too bad. Where it got really fun was my truck went in the shop, I'd been talking to another guy. Sorry, there was another guy there who was a few years younger than I am. He'd been in the company longer, but not much longer. And his company truck was a 379. And like him and I were talking about it, he's like, you should talk to him about the sister truck. Somebody is on their roof here. How do you do that? And what? Like, I mean, fuck, this must have just happened. Only one cop here. How do you do that? How do you, what? It's a beautiful day. I mean, somebody ran him off the road, I guess. I don't know. Texting driving, I don't want to assume, but, anyways, so he's like, yeah, like the sister truck to this thing sitting over there collecting dust. Like, you should talk to them about it. So I had mentioned it to the dispatcher, who's the owner's son, so again, next in line to be the owner, and he ran the entire trucking portion. So WD Potato has their own potato farms, as well as their own trucking company. So the owner's son ran the trucking company side of it, and he had said, I'll leave it with me. Because was like, okay, I don't know what that means. I haven't been here that long. So like a month went by, right? And I was just okay. So then one day I come back into the yard. I had a late night delivery. Come back in at like 8 or 9 in the morning. So we got nothing till later tonight. So if you want, take your stuff and throw it in that other truck you asked about. So I was like, sweet. So it was kind of funny because I feel like I mentioned in a video or two in the past that, I've stared at the 389 dashboard for close to a decade now. Every truck I've owned has been a 389. Most of the trucks that I've been assigned to for like any period of time were either 389s or 389 derivatives. So that 367 has the 389 dashboard as well. Right? It's the same with 1.8 meter cab or 1.9 meter cab. Right? It's got the same dashboard this truck I'm in now has. It was an 06 379. So it was the first year that Peterbilt released the same dashboard that I have right now. So the color palette was different, but it was the same dashboard that I'm currently staring at. Which, it is what it is, but that thing had a C15. It still had the it still had the compound turbo on it, but it was bumped up to about 550 horsepower, and holy shit. I shaved almost a full 30 minutes off of my drive to the Frito-Lay plant from WD's yard. Going the same route, just because that thing would, it had 50 horsepower over top of the PACCAR, right? It was a bigger displacement motor, and it was a cat. It went like fucking gangbusters. And also, all of WD's trucks are muffled. While they like them to look cool, they're very big on, because we go to a lot of farms and, farmers, like small sort of hamlets and stuff like that. We wanted to maintain a good image all around the board. So all of the trucks, the mufflers are intact, except for that one. So while it wasn't straight piped, the mufflers didn't work anymore. So it was the loudest company truck in the fleet. So I fell in love with it, right? I basically was like, this is now my truck, nobody else's. I immediately managed to, funnily enough, because no one else could get them to, I immediately managed to convince the shop to take the rookie rods off of it, because I just don't like rookie rods. And I was having a good time, right? And part of me feels a little bad for what I did next, because that was a really good truck. It needed work as far as cosmetics goes. The rear fenders were pretty dinged up when I got it. Body wise, everything was good, but the bolt on stuff, the fenders were getting a little, the rear fenders were rough. Said that you need a little bit of paint touch up here and there. I ended up having an issue with the Jake switches, so the wiring harness for the engine brake went out on it, so it wasn't jaking anymore properly, right? You'd be on the wrong stage. So it's going to be a couple of days. We got to pull the top off and get out the wiring and shit. So just maybe grab one of the other trucks in one of the spares. So I had jumped in a couple of the spare W9s before, and they were all early 2000s. So they had the square dash W9 or the easy reach, whatever you want to call it. I know this is a flat and an easy reach, but theirs were all easy reach dash, but that, the same gen as the square dash 379, right? Up to 2000, 2001 dash. I really like that dashboard. I really like those dashboards in both Pete's and Kenwood's. So I was trying to, pick a truck. One I'd already driven. It didn't have, it had an engine brake, but it didn't work worth a shit. It had a pack brake on it, which is terrible. I knew I didn't want it, so I jumped into another one and was just blown away. I thought for sure somebody was driving the truck. I was like, oh shit. I jumped, I climbed into a truck that somebody's operating. The shifter was wrapped with bandanas, blue. The whole company's thing is blue. All the gauge lights have been replaced with blue LEDs. All sorts of chrome inside and outside. Brand new fenders, brand new miter cut bumper on it. The truck was spotless. okay, somebody's driving this thing, right? So I went out and checked with one of the other drivers, who's driving that truck? And, yeah, I don't want to take it. This is nobody. What? It's like, yeah, it used to be Mike's truck, and Mike is another young guy who's very much in love with old school trucks. He currently, and he still does, he's a good guy. He's got the only W9 at the company with a studio sleeper on it. It also has the longest wheelbase. So you got it's an 06 or 07 W9. So it's got the new, like the modern dash, but it's got a C15 in it. But he keeps that truck, he did all the work, he keeps that truck spotless. So this other truck used to be his old truck. So then I went and checked with the head shop, and I said, yeah, nobody's in that. Well, then I still couldn't believe it, so I went and checked with, again, the owner, or the owner's son. He's like, yeah, there's nobody driving that thing. I was like, it might be my truck now. And he just laughed. Fucking do what you want. Either way, you're not helping our emission standards as a company, so I don't give a shit which one you drive. So I jumped in it and fucking fell in love with it. The only downside with it is it was never tuned up. So it was a 475 6NT, which again is lots just less than 550, especially when you're grossing 140,000 pounds. I had to start low a lot with that thing. But same thing, like that, I drove that truck for, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months, until I started driving this truck that I'm in now. Again, a large part of me regrets leaving WD. That's sort of been the opinion of several people I've spoken to over the years before I ever worked there who left WD. They'll hire people back, don't get me wrong. But they're very, I'm trying to think of the right word for it here. Conditional is not the right word. Like, they'll hire me back as a company driver. They won't hire me back as an owner-operator, right? So my dad had been sort of pitching to me the idea of almost doing the opposite of what I did with him with my gray truck, my gray 389, where I gave it to him and he took over the payments. He wanted to buy a new truck because he, within 6 months, traded in my gray truck because it just never felt like his truck, because he still referred to it as my truck. He traded it for a used W9, which was the same thing. Studio sleeper. It was a great truck, other than it had an automatic in it. But he, when he started working for the outfit that I'm currently working at now with my dad, I don't know, I guess he decided, new job, new truck. So he sold it for this truck. So he bought this used, which in the today's market, this truck was about the same price used as my first 389 was brand new. Or no, it was more. Because it still owes almost what I paid for my fucking new one. It's the cheap interior. So I've got a crank window on the driver's side. 48 inch, or sorry, whatever the hell their number is now. I think it's 48, 42 inch flat top. So not the coffin, not the big, not the 63 inch flat top. I think it's 48, 44. I don't know. Which is still good. I've still got floor space and a decent sized bed. 510 PACCAR, 18 speed, 342 rear ends. The truck is just like black, like glossy black with a, I don't know if you can call it, I think it's pull me over red, or like fuck me red, whatever the fuck Peterbilt calls it, Viper red frame. I'm not a fan of red. I like blues and purples, but black and red does, like, it does turn, like, this truck does get a lot of attention. Like, a lot of people like black and red as a combo, so, just because it's not 100% my cup of tea doesn't mean it's not giving me a whole bunch of attention. So far, knock on wood, it's been a good truck. But 2 months before the warranty on it ran out, the turbo decided to experience rapid unscheduled disassembly. Actually, I'd only had the truck for about 2 weeks when it did that. I guess it was mad that I was driving it now instead. I hadn't even got my first paycheck yet. It was almost $10,000 worth of repairs, but again, it was all warranty. So I paid like $200 for replacement oil, basically. But other than that, like, I've had no issues. I mean, again, it's effectively the same friggin' truck I had before. Like, other than the last one was mine from the ground up, was much more set up the way I would want it, and which way was it? I can't remember. It was new, I guess, yeah. I should have never gotten rid of it. I should have tried to find a way to hold on and stay owning the truck. Especially again, hindsight, knowing now that I was going to end up right back into it, and also knowing that now both 389s and W900s have discontinued, and therefore, like, I will not from this point forward be able to buy a new 389 decked out the way I wanted it, decked out like the way that truck was. Right, that truck was exactly how I would spec a truck. The only maybe difference was a purple frame. But even then, I didn't actively dislike the silver frame it had. Right, like, that was a really good looking truck. I still occasionally see it. The guys pulled all the shiny shit off of it, put like minimizer plastic fenders on it and stuff, because, you know, it's fucking, that shit always gets damaged no matter what you do. It had the freaking blind mount half fenders on it. And it's still running down the road, but it doesn't look anywhere near as, the only reason I know it is because it's the only truck I've seen with A, in Canada with a 280 wheelbase, B, with a gray truck with a silver frame. This truck's 265 wheelbase, it's a bit shorter. Smaller bump, so it, like, doesn't look really any shorter. Like, it kind of, there's a bit of an optical illusion with it. But yeah, my dad sort of, again, I on the surface thought, okay, he's doing me a favor. I think it was sort of it was a little mutual. I had been talking about buying a truck again, but like, I had no money down or anything like that. My dad, again, because of the market right now, nobody wants to buy a used truck. That's dealerships, that's most people in general, because the used truck market is the same price as the new truck market was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, right? So, you know, again, nobody like, my dad is the only person I know of who happily bought a 2023 89 in 2023 for our, like, $200,000. I don't know exactly what he paid for it. I'm pretty sure it was over 180. Right? And then, you know, happily put along with it and hope for the best, right? Almost everybody's either buying new or buying much older, right? To buy something cheaper. Or if you're going to pay that much money for a truck, get it brand new and have full warranty. So, because of that, right, like, my dad couldn't, like, he wanted to buy a new truck. He'd ordered a W9. This wasn't before we knew that they were going to be discontinued, but, you know, he spec'd the W9 out exactly the way he wanted. But then he'd already started talking to me about taking over this truck. So I had been thinking about it for a bit. He had time. He was waiting for his truck to be built. And then when I said, okay, like, we'll do it, he sort of, I guess, I don't know, like, he sort of felt like, oh no, I gotta hurry up and get this done. So instead of waiting for his truck to show up, and, you know, again, I would have just waited another month or two at WD. He bought a 389 off the lot, which, you know, is good. It's a beautiful truck, but it's the, like, last year of the 389s. It's got the digital dash, all sorts of injector issues that they were having. You know, I mean, otherwise it's a pretty standard 389. A little shorter than he'd like. I think it's perfect for the kind of work we do. We do a little bit of, like, inner city driving, so, like, it's got a 260 wheelbase, so, like, you know, having a shorter, not shorter, but, like, a short-ish wheelbase is, you know, a little bit better for that. But it's just long enough that the truck doesn't look like, you know, scrunched together or anything like that. You know, you got the dealership to add some stripes to it and everything else. It's a good looking truck. Less than a month after he picked that Peterbilt up, and about 2 months before it was scheduled to arrive, the W9 was finished and showed up at the dealership. So he's like, fuck. And I ordered the truck of my dreams, and he ordered that, he spec'd that truck out the way he wanted it, and then he bought one off the lot instead, and then it showed up early, and he's like, fuck, right? But he couldn't, he obviously couldn't just change his mind at that point. But what I didn't quite realize initially was that he was struggling to figure out what to do with this truck, because the dealerships would not give him enough to, he wasn't going to make any money off of trading the truck in. He wasn't even going to break even. He was going to be in the negative, like $80,000 to $100,000, right? Which is not like with also combining that with zero down on a new truck. He probably wasn't going to get approved or get all that stuff set up. However, just walking in with zero down and no negative trade-in, he had no problem he got approved on both fucking trucks at once. They were going to let him buy 2 trucks. On top of the one that was still technically in his name, like this one. So it worked out better for him to get me to take this truck over, so that he could walk in just with zero down instead of zero down plus basically an $80,000 hole in the ground, for lack of a better way to put it. So it's interesting. My brother swears up and down that I got used. I don't know. I'd like to think that my dad wasn't thinking about it that way. Again, he intentionally took the Pete to get me in this truck earlier, right? There was no other reason for him to take the Pete over the W9, given that W9 had a Cummins, which I think they were still having injector issues, but it was, again, built exactly the way he wanted it, which, again, black with a fucking red frame, because that's what he loves. It was exactly the way he wanted to put a truck together. So he would not have thrown that out and bought the 389 like off a lot the way he did, for any reason other than to get me in this truck earlier. And he wasn't like, I got to get this thing sold ASAP, because this truck again was just going to sit there being paid for by him and run by him until the Kenworth came in. So it's hard to say. Again, I try to not assume that my parents are out to get me. So maybe my mindset towards it's a little different than my brother's. But either way, I had figured that this might be an opportunity. My dad was doing quite well here hauling tanker. It's food grade tank, so a lot of cooking oils, chocolate. I've got a load of chocolate on right now. It's like the coating for like Little Debbie, like Swiss rolls and stuff like that. Like literally going to a Hostess plant. Which I don't know about this place. The one place I go to, there's one in Virginia I go to. They give me like multiple boxes of different whatever junk food they're making that week. Last time I was there, I got strawberry Swiss rolls, apple pies, and what was the last one? Oatmeal, like the oatmeal cream pie, like cookie things. All wonderful, all not beneficial to me trying to lose weight. But what am I gonna do? Say fuck you! Don't give me free food, right? I want to maintain that good relationship, and I just got to come up with the friggin', the self-control to not eat it. But anyways, and like the money he's making was quite good. I haven't done anywhere near as well as him since I've started. I definitely had a bit of a bumpy start getting back into owning a truck, getting back into tanker work, right? There were some of these trailers are set up differently than the last time I did food and tanker, but not enormously so. It'd been so long that I'd forgotten the routine. So like my very first load, I went down to get loaded. And to be fair, I was informed that it was also on the loader. Neither of us checked to make sure that the back of the trailer was sealed, like closed. So he started pumping product in and it started pouring out the back. So we had to realize real quick that all the valves were open. And he wasn't like, he was mad when it happened, I guess. He seemed agitated, but like he, was not. A little bit later, like after we fixed the problem, I'd gone back outside to wait for the trailer to be loaded. But again, it was okay. I gotta, make sure that when I go to the tank wash, for example, to pick up a clean trailer, check in the back box, unless it's already been sealed by the tank wash, make sure that all the valves are closed. And if I get the opportunity to double check if it's been sealed in the tank wash, check in the customer, make sure the valves are closed. Right? They're just butterfly valves, it's nothing crazy. But what I guess what I kind of struggled with here is that this company is still starting out. So they have a little bit less protections in place to compensate for, like, how do I word this? Like at the last place I hauled tanker for, if I messed something up, right? The company was big enough that they had other contingencies that they could use. Right, like, okay, we got other drivers in the area, we'll fix this, or we got other parts, we got a parts network, we'll get that fixed. Here they don't. And they're dispatching, which tanker dispatching is always chaotic. You have all of the typical problems that a truck driver faces when it comes to scheduling, right? Traffic, weather, construction, all of that stuff. But then you also have added like delays that you also don't have control over. So one of them, other carriers can encounter from time to time, and that's that customers are not ready for your product. It happens a lot. I think pretty much across the entire industry, right? Somebody in an office in Salt Lake City is in charge of ordering product, so he's like, well, it's been a week. I got to order product for the plant over in Decatur, Illinois, and then they've ordered the product. Decatur, Illinois still got 3/4 of a silo. They don't actually need product because they weren't running what that product makes for a couple of days. So then you show up and we don't have anywhere to put this. So then, again, it is their fault. So you get paid by the hour to just sit there until it's washed or until they have room, right? As the driver, again, $50 an hour to sit there. I'm not complaining, but it messes with the schedule because, again, I might have had a reload. Well, now I can't get the reload because I'm still waiting to get the load unloaded, right? I've seen that. I've experienced that at other types of jobs too. Not so much in flatbed, though I have had it in dry van or reefer work. Again, especially getting loaded, right? They don't, reefer places will make you wait forever. Or, you show up at an appointment and we'll call you when we have a dock. And every dock's open, there's not a single truck in the dock, but you're going to sit there for 6 hours. But the tanker work is definitely beneficial because I get paid for all of it. I get paid on the hour, starting as soon as I show up. So there's no 2-hour bullshit, give them 2 hours before you start charging. No, as soon as I show up on the property, unless I'm late for my appointment and it was because I fucked up, then we give them, I think, 2 hours or something like that. But if I show up on time, the second I show up on the property, I'm getting paid by the hour, which is great. The other one that most other types of freight hauling will not encounter, save for maybe bull haulers, is, and I guess occasionally produce haulers, is trailer washouts. So because we haul a variety of products, and because none of these products are dangerous, as in you cannot, if a little streak of chocolate in this trailer is still in it, when I pick up a load of canola oil, oh no, somebody's going to die. No, this is an oil-based chocolate. There aren't any nuts or anything in it. Obviously, the trailers are expected to be cleaned between every load. So what most tanker outfits do, at least when it comes to food grade, is sort of maintain a network of all of our trailers are scattered across North America. So like we don't have all of our trailers consolidated in one yard. They're all over the place, right? Like we'll have some, and there's a tank wash in Louisville, Kentucky. There's Chattanooga, Tennessee. Again, like some of the ones across Canada we use, like Ontario. So we will, you know, what would happen then is, in theory, right? You go and you deliver a load. You drive to the nearest tank wash, drop your trailer off, and pick up a clean trailer, and then carry on, right? But sometimes I've had it happen where you show up and the clean trailer's not washed yet. Somebody screwed up somewhere, or someone else came in with like they needed their trailer washed ASAP, and they pay for it. So our trailer got bumped lower on the list, and suddenly you're 2 or 3 hours waiting there for your clean trailer. Or again, if you have to if we don't have a trailer sitting there and you have to get the trailer washed, well, again, on a good day they'll get you right in, but I've had days where I sit for 6, 8, 12 hours before they can bring my trailer in to wash, and then it's another 2 or 3 hours before it's out again, right? So again, I get paid for all of that, but the company doesn't, and that's a big delay. And unfortunately, that's like the customer, that's a delay that there isn't really a method of controlling. Again, we could argue, well, that we won't use that tank wash, but, well, if the American Tank Wash in Louisville, Kentucky is the only tank wash, for 300, 400, 500 miles, like, what are you going to do, right? Like, you really, again, like when I deliver this load, I'm going to Arkansas, right? There are several tank washes nearby, right? So there's one just over the border into Texas that I could go to. We don't have any trailers there, so we'd be able to live wash. There's another one in kind of, I don't know, like slightly north of center and slightly west of central Arkansas, that I've gone to once before, and they were really good. But again, they don't even have a yard to drop trailers. It is all live wash. And then, or you go back to Louisville, right? Louisville, Kentucky for American, where we do have trailers parked. So if we were to tell Louisville to go pound salt, we don't have that wash in that area, but B, all the trailers that we've been staging out there now have to go somewhere else. And the other two closest washes that at least I'm aware of out here don't allow you to park trailers there. They don't even have room for you to park trailers there. So all of a sudden, we don't have the sort of logistical backup that we get from being able to use a tank wash as a trailer drop yard, which everybody does. It's just part of the business, right? It's most tanker work. It's caustics and stuff drop off too there too, fuel trailers, whatever. So all of a sudden you would end up losing like a pretty valuable piece of your network. Like, could we afford to lose the that Texas wash or the Arkansas wash? Maybe, I guess, technically. But they're also like not really the delay. The one in Texas, maybe because they don't work particularly late and they're not open 24/7. But the one in Arkansas is fucking pretty quick. So, and not that the one in Louisville is bad either. I'm just using them as an example. But they, we as a company couldn't really afford to lose that logistics of having a yard to drop trailers at, but also then having it so that 90% of the time, or even more than 90% of the time, driver shows up to the yard, the other trailer's already sitting there washed, so all he's got to do is just switch, right? Drop and hook and take off or whatever. So you'd lose that. So unfortunately, it's sort of like a necessary evil. And again, there are tank washes that are sort of notorious for being like a delay. So like we don't use them, right? There's always one just on the outskirts of Chicago that no matter what, like whether I was coming in there to drop and hook or do a live wash, I was going to be there for probably the entire night because it was Chicago. There's too many trailers coming in, right? They only have like 3 or 4 bays, right? And Chicago's not exactly a small city, so they were, jam-packed all the time. And that place runs 24/7, right? Where the hell was the other one? There's another one I was thinking of. There was one in, I think it's technically in Newark, New Jersey. And I think it's the Port of Newark tank wash, or OJ tank wash, or something like that. Again, I don't want to throw them under the bus. They're not bad. It's just, again, the location is really a pain in the ass for us to get to. We don't have any customers there, like right there. And the tank wash at Port of Wilmington is closer to our customers and also like a little bit quieter. And you're not trying to navigate the OJ wash is like on a stretch of bridge, and if you go the wrong way, you're in New York City, and like that really ain't fucking cool with an 18-wheeler unless you're supposed to be there. The one at Wilmington, like Port of Wilmington, Delaware, is a lot easier to deal with. Not like the people, it's all the same, but like getting into and out of without getting lost and discovering you're, staring at a low bridge with a line of cars blasting their horns at you behind you, and you don't know how the fuck you're going to get out of this. And then also there's technically a truck stop up the road, but it's not a very big one. And they have a secondary yacht that's very quiet, so you can sleep there and, they don't care. There are, there are a few washes that I used to use the last time I did tanker stuff that we don't use here. I don't really miss those, at least those two in particular. I'm not losing sleep over it, I guess. But yeah, there's that is always sort of like the one big like delay factor that like is really unpredictable and is really like uncontrollable. Like you could, again, you can't really do much with a customer if they don't have room for the product either. But there's been a few times where like there's one place we deliver to where they have room, but I don't want to say the receivers are lazy, but I don't think they work that hard. So I won't say where it is because I don't want to talk too shitty of places that we actively deal with. But they, you go in there, they have no contact, like we have email contact with them, and then ostensibly we have phone contact with them, but nobody answers the phone. So they've done they book us in for like a 3 a.m. delivery. So you show up for 3 a.m., ring the buzzer right at the check-in, nobody's there. There's no receivers there, there's nobody there. Right? You start making the phone calls to the number, nothing. It goes to voicemails, or it goes to a line that hangs up on you or whatever. So you're like, what the fuck? I've delivered there twice. The first time I was there for over 24 hours. The second time I was there for 12 hours before the boss said, fucking drop the trailer there and leave because we need you to do something else. They don't want to receive us. They had the room, they just didn't want to come out and unload me. Like, well, they can wait with the trailer there until we got another guy coming up there. He'll deliver it. He sat there for 36 hours. When I basically you have to show up at your appointment time and then go park somewhere and sit and either A, stand at the door and hit the buzzer over and over again until somebody shows up, however long that takes, or go back to your truck and periodically come over and see if somebody comes out. So the last time I was there, and a guy came out because it was me and one other guy standing at the door, and there was actually an outside contractor on a forklift that there was a garage door open for him because he was bringing a forklift in and out. He's like, "You want me to check if somebody's in there?" I was like, "Please." So he got somebody to come out, and he's like, "What are you here for?" He's like, "Deliver a load of, He's like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "Deliver a load of chocolate?" He's like, "Do you do I look like I have time for this? Look at all these trailers I got. You got 3 trailers on the door, dude. I really don't care how much time you do or don't have. You guys booked a load to deliver at 3 a.m. this morning. I've been here since, well, I got there the night before. I've been here since 8 p.m. the night before. Like, my time is money too, dude. Like, get me unloaded or, you know, we're going to turn around and leave. So I didn't say all of that. It just, again, my company wants to be diplomatic. Like I said, I did tell him, like, dude, I've been here since my appointment time. Like, my appointment was for 3. Why are they booking us in at 3 if you guys aren't even in yet? He's like, oh, we were here. He's like, the office was closed. Oh yeah, we were in the front doing other stuff. Like, okay, so you're not working this part of the building. Like, you're not in receiving until like 10. He's like, oh yeah, no, we don't start receiving until like 10. Like, so, and he agreed with me on this. Like, somebody should be contacted. Whoever's ordering the product and ordering it to show up at 3 o'clock in the morning needs to be fucking shot, because there's no reason for us to show up at 3 in the morning, right? Or get up at 3 in the morning if we showed up the night before. If you know for a fact, like, you guys aren't going to come out until 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, like, that's fine, right? But then, you know, that should be what our appointment times are, right? So he wasn't, like, he was shitty at first when he was, again, the whole, you know, can't you see how busy I am? But he sort of brightened up pretty quick, I guess. Again, I waited there for about 12 hours, and then eventually he was like, okay, I'm leaving. Dispatch was like, yeah, just drop the trailer in one of the parking spots and fuck off. If they want the product, then they can figure out how to load it themselves, at least until we get another driver over there. It's their fucking fault, right? They don't know if they can receive you right now. Oh, fucking, we're busy. We need you to go get another load, so you're gonna go get the other load, and they can wait. Right? And again, I mean, they fucking waited, they paid for it. Like, it is what it is, right? It's unfortunate, I guess, for them. I don't fucking know. I mean, I got $50 an hour for 20 fucking hours. Then the other driver got $50 an hour for 30 hours to sit there. Like, it is what it is. But, like, you know, it's still... You'd think that somebody at that company would say, hey, like, we're throwing a lot of money away with these sort of scheduling hiccups. Why don't we figure out why guys are being dispatched or being booked in appointments at 3 o'clock in the morning when we don't have anybody receiving until 9 o'clock? Right? That would save them, you know, $50, well, a bit more. Again, I get $50 an hour. I don't know what the company books it for, right? But again, just using what I get, like $50 an hour, right? Times, again, there's 3 or 4 trucks sitting there waiting. Like, that adds up. There's several $1,000s you just threw away by making trucks wait 30-something hours to unload. Or, you know, even if it's a couple of hours, right? So it's just like, damn, you guys are shooting yourselves in the foot here real hard. So I don't know. Like I said, it was kind of that one was a bit of a pain in the ass. The unload process there was fine. They're not shitty. The only weird one is they insisted that at no point does any part of the hose touch the ground. I'm like, the hose is heavy and it's like 20 feet long. Like, I'm not going to be able to pull the hose all the way out of the trailer and like hook it up without part of it touching the ground. Like, any part, even the middle that doesn't have any openings or anything. Like, you know, especially the one time I went there with a belly drop, even though they unload from the back. So I had to pull the hose out and then like pull it out from like facing forwards and then somehow carry it to the back of the trailer. No, I just waited until they went inside and dragged the fucking thing. There's literally no other way that's going to work. Like, you know, I'm a relatively strong guy, I think, but I'm not that strong. Especially when it comes to dealing with a 20-foot floppy hose. Like, you know, make all the jokes you want, but I can't handle that much hose. But yeah, and again, that's, like I said, they're not rude about it or anything like that. Like that one guy, I think he was having a bad start to his day, but again, he was pretty friendly by the time like we were actually all said and done. Like, mean, I didn't unload it again. Like, by the time we were negotiating where I was going to park the trailer, he was in pretty good mood. So, you know, it is. I mean, I say it a lot. It is what it is. Probably the biggest frustration I've had here so far is just that I get there isn't dispatch themselves aren't really that great at compensating for problems. So, you know, they make scheduling conflicts, and then they sort of struggle to figure out how to deal with it. So the main dispatcher is a very nice lady, but she's a little too nice and a little too hungry for work. So she'll book freight, and then, you know, without us having a driver able to pick the load up, for example. So we get a lot of instances, especially when we're busier, where, you know, I've had a week where it's like, okay, you're going to go down to Philadelphia, you're going to load this load, then you're going to take it to the tank wash, drop it, you're going to go to grab this other trailer, load this load, take it to the tank wash, drop it, grab this third trailer that's at the tank wash, you're going to go back to a different spot in Philly and deliver it, then you're going to come back and get the first trailer and, you know, bring it up to the border, meet another driver, then you're going to go back down and get the second trailer, and you're going to deliver it. And it's like, holy fucking shit. Each one of them has a separate trip number, which requires a separate sheet of paperwork. And you're like, this is fucking bananas. But it's like, all the time I've been doing this, you could have just brought the other guy down to freaking grab the second trailer, the first trailer, you know what I mean? Like, so it's a little, you know, sometimes like they don't schedule things very well. Or they make big mistakes, and then again, it's sort of, well, like, we really need you to figure out how to deal with this. So the most recent one last week, or I guess it was earlier this week, technically, I had a delivery in Indiana, right? So not a bad trip or anything like that. I had issues. I thought I had no oil pressure, just the sensor was dead. So I went to Peterbilt and had them replace the oil pressure sensor for me. So I was going to be late to loading, so they got another driver to load it for me, but no big deal. Hooked onto the trailer, decided to screw it. Like, it loaded on Monday, I think. It delivered in Indiana for Wednesday. I had Thursday booked off. Well, again, the delivery is like 7 hours from where the tank wash was. So, like, you know, it's not a like, if I drive an hour and get to my delivery, and then I've still got, you know, especially when I cross into Canada, I'll still have 12 hours left after that to drop the trailer off and get home, right? No big deal. So you know, I'm only 7 hours away, and I loaded on Monday, it delivers on Wednesday, so like I got all day Tuesday, and I'm only going to drive 7.5, basically 8 hours, right? So I get up Tuesday morning, and I get rolling. I get to the truck stop about 20 minutes away from the delivery, right? And I'm there at about 4 p.m. 2 p.m. Sorry, no, 4. So I pull in, and kind of no sooner do I pull in than dispatch texts me and says, "Hey, like, we've got a bit of a problem. Can you?" Because again, I was sitting there like, shit. Like, I don't have to deliver till 8 a.m. tomorrow, right? I'm gonna have a couple of extra hours off, right? Watch some movies, and go to bed at 9, 10 o'clock at night, which is what my brain or my body had been ready, like, conditioned for. Get up at 7 in the morning and zip on over there for like 7:38, and I'm good to go. I get there, dispatch is like, so we have a problem. We booked a load to load 8 hours away in Canada for 4 p.m. today. We don't have anybody to load it, so we're gonna need. Can you go into the delivery as early, like as soon as you're legally able to, get in there and get delivered, and then zip back to Canada and get this load loaded. You're just gonna load it, take it to the tank wash, and then go home. Right? So, okay. That's going to be a lot because, again, I think a lot of other truckers can attest to this. Nobody likes to go to the International 9670. Nobody wants to load, nobody wants to get, to drive most of their day and then, near the end of their day, be dealing with, loading or unloading trailers. Because you may not have hours afterwards. Again, you might not have hours to get there. Like I've had a few places like deliveries where it's like, okay, you loaded this morning, now the delivery's 12 hours away, and you got to deliver it tonight, right? And you're like, if I don't get there, it's going to have to wait until tomorrow. Well, I can't do that. So then I got to break the fucking law or pull hours out of my ass to get stuff done. So, it's stupid. And again, I understand why they do it. It's because they have a few drivers, and again, I'm not shade against them, who are willing to do that, whether it's, break the law or just manipulate their logbook so much that, again, it's legal, but they're not getting any sleep to get the job done, because at least the job done, right? So so it's now 4 p.m. I get to the truck stop. I'm like, okay, if I want 8 hours of sleep, I got to be in bed by 6 p.m. Like, I didn't wake up till almost fucking 5:30, 6 o'clock this morning. Like, there's no way I'm going to fall asleep after only having been awake for 12 hours. And surprise, surprise, I couldn't fall asleep till like 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. So I slept for 4 hours-ish, right? Got up at 2, was like, fuck this shit. Went back to bed for another hour, got up at 3 instead, so I took 11 hours off, which I'm still waiting to be yelled at for that. Get out, not that it made a difference. Got up, went to left at 3, went down to the customer, just to find that, nope, I should have shown up at my appointment time, because they had a truck scheduled for 5 or 6 in the morning. That truck had shown up the day before, and it parked in the receiving spot and just waited for this morning. So when I showed up, right, I started my day at 3 a.m. I got there, I sat there until 8:30 was when they finally started unloading me. So now I'm not leaving there till it was about 10:30-ish, 11. Right, so now I'm starting my 8+ hour drive back to Canada to get loaded, and it's like I'm not going to get there now until between 7 and 9 p.m. basically, and it's like my day started at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, again, because I went on sleeper berth while I was waiting to get unloaded, legally I'm okay. Right? I split my sleeper berth technically, but because I was up waiting, because this particular customer is pretty it's their pump, but you do everything, so they're pretty laid back or laissez-faire. So they're just like, yeah, when she pulls out, pull in. So I've got to make sure that I'm awake to see her leave, so that I know when to pull in. So I spent those 4 hours sitting in my fucking driver's seat, playing on my phone or whatever. Again, in hindsight, knowing that it was almost 4 hours, I could have gone to bed. But again, hindsight's 20/20. So I got to my load at again, what the hell was it, 8-ish, almost 9. So what I had to do was go back up, bring the trailer, the empty trailer now, the trailer that I delivered, bring that to. We have a drop yard that's literally across the highway from where I was loading. Switch to an empty that was sitting there. Go load the empty. Bring it back to that drop yard. Switch back to my the trailer that I delivered, and take it back into the outskirts of Oakville to Toronto for the tank, to drop it off at the tank launch. So by the end of the day, I had been working for over 20 hours. That was after a roughly 4-hour sleep, 4.5 hours in particular. And to top it off, I didn't have enough hours to get home, so I had to get up super early. Again, only take 5 or 6 hours off because I'm still splitting my sleeper technically, right? Get up and book it home because I had something I needed to be home for on Thursday. So then I was exhausted all day Thursday while I was doing what I needed to be home for. And it's this was kind of fucking stupid, right? And again, it wasn't a case of oops, traffic got in the way, or oops, the customer made me wait. No, my dispatched me to do that. Right? But that sort of, I'm still sort of, I don't know, processing it, I guess, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that will watch these types of videos and say, oh, fuck, I do it all the time. 20 hours, that's nothing. Right? And if you're addicted to working and you are just, you're proud of the fact that you just kind of do whatever your boss tells you, without question, then I guess good for you. But I often consider my time to be more valuable to me than money. So I tend to really struggle or get very agitated when my time isn't taken particularly seriously. Again, the mileage that I ran was basically the same mileage no matter what. So I had a 20-hour work day. I made, I guess, effectively 6 hours of pay at best for waiting, the extra hours waiting to my delivery, plus now the hour and a half or whatever it was to load. But the mileage wasn't any different, right? I guess I had maybe 2 extra miles on there, right? And that hourly, again, there's a chance I would have sat for 4 hours or whatever at the customer anyways when I delivered instead. I wouldn't have shown up that early, I guess. So I wouldn't have gotten paid for the hours I sat there. It's not, a large part of me still doesn't feel like it was worth it. But my dad, for example, if you work for 8 hours and only get paid, get paid for 8, that's fine. If you work for 20 hours and get paid for 12, well, fuck. If the only way you're going to get paid for 12 hours is to work 20, you fucking do it, right? But to me, that seems really stupid, I guess. But again, my dad said there was a bigger paycheck than I did, because even though he may have worked exponentially more than I did, his pay was for more hours than mine was, right? So it's, I guess he's in the right. I don't know, right? Not that really actually works that way. My dad actually tends to work fewer hours a day than I do. But that circles back to, the company being more or less prepared to deal with, me or whatever than other places. Because, again, this company sort of, and this is sort of, I guess, knocking myself a little bit. This company I work for, I think, sort of, and they, to be fair, I guess they did say it, we only want the best. Though, again, what the best is different depending on who you ask, right? In my head, the best is, the safest and most efficient workers. Again, it could be the guys that will get it done no matter what, right? There's different varied definitions of what the best is when it comes to an employee. But dispatch serves up a lot of curveballs. Again, goofy dispatching, or they'll flat finger numbers a lot. You're supposed to grab trailer number 2006, but they actually meant to type in 2005, and you're like, holy shit, 2006 doesn't have the tank wash. What do I do? Right? And a lot of times they're like, well, it's there, I'm seeing it, and then they'll realize afterwards, oh Jesus, no, that was a typo. I screwed that up, right? But at that point, you've been driving around the tank wash for an hour and a half, wasting time, right? So I am still, by trucker standards, a rookie at this job, right? I think a lot of truck drivers that I come across in my day-to-day activities don't realize that. A, because I'm older than a lot of guys are when they started out. B, because I own a 389, right, and kind of always have. Again, I remember when I had only been driving for 6 months, and a guy had commented on, we were both supposed to back in a dock, and he was like, I'll let you go first. You probably do this all the time with a truck like that. There should be no problem. Like, holy fuck, dude. You've had your CDL for about fucking 12 years longer than I have. thanks for the ego inflation, but fuck. But like, like those. So it's easy even for myself to forget that like I'm very much still a rookie, right? They usually consider you to be a rookie until you're out here for at least a decade. Now I'm at 9 years at the end of October, but that's still not 10 years. It's not a decade. So my dad, for example, he can kind of compensate for a lot of these curveballs, right? He knows several tricks, He's conditioned himself to run extra hard or run extra far, right? And again, my dad's been a truck driver since before logbooks even existed in Canada. So like, he has spent much of his life being very accustomed to just driving until your fucking job's done, not until you're tired. So the odd time that he's got to sort of make that push, he can do it. Or again, alternatively, he knows a quieter road to take that'll save him some time, or you know what I mean. Like he's got much more knowledge at his disposal to sort of compensate for the dispatch here being somewhat underprepared a lot of the times, or somewhat unorthodox is the right word, but like off the cuff, or like a little bit sporadic. I struggle a lot with that kind of stuff. It could be because I'm autistic. I feel like I don't know. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that a year or two ago, whatever it was I streamed last. I'm on the spectrum. I also have ADHD, which also is a struggle. But like, curveballs. Like I don't like curveballs. I don't want curveballs. And there's a not zero chance that I'm going to fumble the curveball, right? Like again, there have been a few times where I've been kind of thrown a goofy dispatch and I couldn't get it done, right? I remember I had one where I had a long day, kind of the same idea as the other day, even though at that time I could not make it legal, where I had to deliver and it's like, I don't have the hours to get to the delivery today. Well, you have to get there. So I had to go in personal conveyance and, get to my delivery. Well, then I couldn't leave the delivery. Like, you can't stay here. So I had to sleep on the side of the road, fucking the outskirts of Toronto, right? Because I couldn't legally make it work otherwise, right? And like, I had a personal conveyance in there. It's not like I legally made it work anyways. It's like, my dad, again, might have gotten there legally and maybe had hours to spare. I genuinely don't know how he would do it, but the general consensus seems to be is that he would find a way to do it, right? There was a point where like my dad and the owner of the company here just had a conversation about me, and they both sort of came to the conclusion that I'm doing something wrong here. I am working more than my dad, but I'm making less money. However, they looked over all my paperwork, they looked at my logbooks, my hours. Like, we cannot determine why you're not doing that well. But evidently there's a problem, and it's your problem. You need to fix it, but we don't know what it is. So for me, I guess I've sort of been dealing with that my whole life, where again, especially with the ADHD, right? Like, well, how come you can't remember this, or how come you don't pay attention, right? And nobody in my family when I was a kid even considered the idea that ADHD was even a thing. So like, no, Daniel's just, not paying attention or not doing it right. So like, I'm used to, we don't know what your problem is, but you need to fix it. But that doesn't make it any less difficult to deal with, right? Because I don't know what I need to do differently. I had some guesses, right? The main one being like this: I need to be dispatched in a more like straightforward way. So, I understand that like sometimes you can't help when a plan changes, right? But don't change the plan on me. Like, dispatch me to do something, don't change it, right? Like I said, unless something outside changes it, right? Again, the customer changes something. I mean, I had a load. I said the last time, the first, so this will be the first time I'm actually going to this customer. I was dispatched to go to this place once before, but about 10 minutes after I crossed the border, they canceled the load. However, because I was already across the border, our company was like, well, it has already cleared customs. We cannot legally bring it back into Canada. You need to find something to do with it. So they had me go to Emporia, Kansas, to one of their other locations, which again was fine. So with that, the same thing. That is something that I can't control, dispatch can't control. However, the dispatch the other day, dispatch could have controlled that, right? For them to tell me again, about 5 minutes before I set my parking brake, hey, you know, we need you to throw your plan out the window and rush and drive a huge day, and it all needs to get done, right? If I don't get it done, they sit back and say, well, you know, you are screwing up here. And it's like, I was doing my job fine. You guys introduced this other part to the job that made it a challenge for me, and now I'm being told that I'm not doing my job properly, right? And the argument is well, challenges happen all the time in trucking. It's like, I guess they do, but most of the time they come from something that we don't have control over. Again, a customer changing their plans, or traffic, or weather, not dispatch booking a load, and then turn around and saying, oh shit, we don't actually have a truck to haul this. Let's send the guy who's 8-9 hours away and just force him just put him under a huge rush to get up there. Because again, I mean, they initially wanted the load loaded at 4 p.m. It's like, even if I'd gotten unloaded early, I don't think I would have made it there for that. But again, I had to basically go right up the road that I'm on now. Like, that would have been, you know, and it was during a weekdays. Like, traffic's already busy enough here as it is. But I-69 in Indiana is pretty busy a lot of times during the week. So like, it would have been a pain in the ass. You know what I mean? And it was probably always going to be a tricky thing to get to. I had another one where same thing. The load was loaded, and it was dispatched to deliver the very next day, first thing in the morning. Okay, in the city, in the Brampton area, which is north of Toronto. So I'd never been there before, and they don't answer phone calls. So I tend to err on the side of caution. I do not park. I don't go to customers blindly at the end of my work shift and hope that I can find somewhere to park, especially in the city. Right? We have a few customers, like the one I went to in Indiana, and there's another one I've been to in Indiana, which was really good. And now that I've been there, I know I can sleep there. Where they're out in the middle of nowhere, so it's like, okay, right? They're on in a small town in like the town's industrial area, which is like two buildings, and one of them is a customer. I know that I can park on a quiet side street there, and like I'm going to be left alone, right? If I can't park on the property. But going to a delivery in the city, I don't know, right? I can't tell if the customer will let me park on the property because they won't answer the phones. I'll be out of hours by the time I get there, so I can't leave if I'm wrong, which means that I have to park on the side of the road in a major city, and I don't feel comfortable doing that. So I drove until that particular load, I loaded on time. I was about a half hour early for my appointment. Loading went smoothly, right? I took off, I stopped 3 times. Once to submit paperwork, right, for customs. Once for fuel. And once again, once my customs approval came in to print off the paperwork I needed to hand to the customs officer, right? That's it. I got to one of the last truck stops you can stop at before I got into like the Toronto area, right? Shut down for the night. So, okay. Now the tough part is, I'm an hour away from the customer, right, from the delivery. If I take 10 hours off, I can get up an hour before my delivery. Get up at 5 a.m. Like, okay. I don't know, and I asked dispatch, but they had no idea, or actually they didn't even answer me, whether or not I'm going to be going back into the U.S. tomorrow or not. Right? If I am staying in Canada, I can take only 8 hours off, because Canadian law only requires 8 hours of consecutive off-duty or sleep and birth time to constitute a shift reset, or like a shift or whatever. But if I need to enter the United States, I have to take 10 hours off. So, because there was no talk of me going home afterwards, and 99% of our work is cross-border, I decided, without any information, even though I pursued information, that I was probably going to be expected to go back into the United States tomorrow or the next day. So I said, okay, I'm taking 10 off. So I took 10 off, I got up, I drove into the customer, I got to the customer, checked in, I was there like 2 minutes after 6. Oh, you're at the wrong spot. So we've got two receiving, two places. They are 3 buildings away from each other on the same road. Both addresses are on the bill of lading. Both of them were listed as the actual delivery address, but also as the customer that's paying for it. So it's just luck of the draw. It happens all the time. Just, you let you in the property, you can spin around here and just go back. It's 3 buildings down. Go in. I'll let them know you're here. So perfect. So I do that. I go over there. They're like, no problem. Everything's good. Get unloaded. They went and complained to the company that I was 12 minutes late, and were refusing to pay the hourly waiting time because of it. So I was, called and lectured about how I need to plan my day better to get there on time. And again, the only thing I could have done differently, which is what I expressed to the boss, is driven there and parked. He's like, well, you could probably park there. I said, no, you can't. So I found out from my dad afterwards when I talked to him about it all. He said, no, you can't park there. They got a night guy that'll kick you out. There's property, if you, the first place I stopped at, right, you pull into a parking lot, and you can get pretty far into the parking lot before you encounter the actual gate to go around the back of the building where they receive stuff. But that parking lot, they will kick you out of. And, if they don't, well, if another truck's already there, you're screwed. You can't get in, right? You can park on the road there, but it's technically, you're not supposed to. So it's, it's not 50-50. I don't know what the percentage chance would be that a local cop gives you a parking ticket, right? We had that for the longest time when I worked for WD. This place we over to in Brampton. We have a permit to park on the side of the road there, and we started getting parking tickets anyways, just because one cop decided he was real horny for issuing and handing out parking tickets. Because there are a lot of trucks that park there that are not permitted to. We do because we all are expected to wait in line to deliver potatoes, and there's no room on the property to wait in line. We have a permit, the sign saying that permanent parking only. But, that's whatever. So, again, the answer was, well, no, there really isn't anything different that you could have done, but you should have done something better, right? And well, you should have planned your trip better. So there wasn't room to plan the trip better. I showed well, you should have, you were at the delivery before that 10 minutes late too. I ran into traffic 15 minutes from the customer. It made me go from being 15 minutes early to 10 minutes late. So that's probably the problem. You got to plan your day better. So first off, explain that part. Secondly, after I delivered at that first customer, I drove to a tank wash that same day, right? So I don't remember the date, but I'd say it was on a Monday. You didn't have me reloading until Wednesday at this customer that came into delivering in Toronto, or Brampton. The place that I'm reloading at is only 4.5 hours from the tank wash, and I have over 24 hours to get there. I was at the truck stop in town, down the road from the pickup location, by 10 a.m. the day before my appointment time. So no, me showing up 10 minutes late to my delivery before that has nothing to do with my scheduling on this particular trip, right? I was already there. Well, why didn't you show up early? Because they don't unload trucks early. I checked with them. I asked them, like, no, my appointment. It's an ADM facility. They're nice. Like, they're not shitty, but they get a lot of trucks in for a variety. They've got van trucks, they've got tankers, they've got like hoppers coming in with stuff. So like, they're pretty by the book in terms of scheduling. So no, like, half an hour is fine. But even then, like, we prefer guys to show up like right when they're supposed to unload, right, or load. So no, I could not have done that, right? Not without facing potentially being, chastised for it. And then if they were to load me that night, well, then by that time I can't get a parking spot. So like, not that matters. That's sort of like, that's my own problem, really. But it's still, there wasn't a whole lot different I could do. So like, why, there isn't, and again, you admit it, like, I can't really see what else you could have done, but you were still 12 minutes late, and therefore it's a problem, right? It's like, I don't know how to solve this problem, right? I don't know how to fix that issue, aside from break this, I already do the speed limit or better or something, like either wildly break the speed limits or, I don't know, right? Like, what else do you do? Not stop for paperwork and hope they let me across at customs without the paperwork I'm required to have to cross the border? Like, don't stop for fuel and just hope I don't run out? Like, what do you do, right? So there's this sort of belief now that, my dad would get something done that I couldn't get done, which may be true. I don't know, right? It might not be at times, depending on the situation. Because a lot of these cases, my dad's like, what the fuck are they on about? There's nothing you could have done, right? But it means that it's like I said, there's dispatch is making errors when it comes to scheduling, and when it comes to booking loads. And rather than admitting that we're screwing up by overbooking, right? They overbook on freight a lot, so they have way more freight than we have trucks to haul it. Or scheduling things too tight, which is a result of overbooking. Because, okay, we've got one truck booked on 3 jobs, so he's got to do those jobs as fast as humanly possible, right? So that nobody's that late. It seems easier for the company to give me shit and tell me that I've got to figure out how to get this stuff done, right? Rather than fix things themselves and just all they have to do is book less freight. Like, we have more. Again, I get it. We have the company I work for has become pretty popular, with a few like major like oil, like coconut oil, palm oil, whatever, and then like chocolate suppliers or manufacturers, which is great. But we have to be realistic as a company, right? There are only, I think right now, 18 trucks, and I think we've got just under 30 trailers. So like, we don't have a 50 truck fleet worth of trucks and trailers to do the work, right? The company that I worked for previously does. Now again, most of their trucks are Cascadias driven by guys that just come off the boat from India. But like, they have, and like our biggest competitor, which is the biggest guy, same thing, right? They've got, and I hate saying this, I've had these conversations before on my videos, with guys, like immigrant truck drivers that have come to Canada from most notably the Middle East. There are a lot of reasons for it. There's a lot of reasons why, it's a problem. It's not just that truck driver's a dirty Indian guy and is therefore bad. No, it's, like I said, it's a lot of guys that want to be good truck drivers that our government isn't giving them the tools they need to really be successful. But, as far as the customer is concerned, like, that doesn't matter, right? So when they order a truck to come and pick up a load of chocolate, and the term is usually typically New Canadian, shows up with a Cascadia, and again, the track record with a lot of these companies, and that's a lot of their workforce, is much spottier than a company like ours is, which, again, they'll hire anybody, but they're a lot more selective with the drivers. So, like, they've had, I mean, one of their first employees was a guy named Mark, who's a friend of mine, right? He's half Indian, right? And he looks full Indian. But again, he was born and raised here, right? So he's more like he claims to be whiter than me. I guess we'll put it that way. And I'm half ginger, so like I'm pretty fucking white. What was I going to say? So he, you know, they're not, but they're very like they're very picky on like the actual quality of the driver they have, right? Again, I'm probably the only exception because they really wanted my dad to work here, and obviously bringing me on as well is a great step they feel to, you know, keeping my dad happy. And they were pretty, like, the owner of this company was the guy that hired me in the last tanker job I worked at. So I was, you know, I was pretty good back then. He was pretty happy with my work, so he wanted me back too. Maybe not as bad as they wanted my dad, but, you know, they were happy to bring me on. But there is, like I said, there's just a few more. I don't know, some of it I think I've lost a little bit of confidence because of like how things have gone for me over the last couple of years. But also, again, there's less of a, I was going to say there's less of a safety net, but that's not true, because the previous place I worked at, like, their dispatching was goofed up too, but like, I don't know, there was I guess they were easier to say no to. If they presented me with something where like, you know, can you get this done? And it's like, no, I fucking can't. Then I would say, no, I fucking can't. Where here, it's harder to say that because I guess because I know how how stressed out the dispatching is, right? Because here, like I said, we're in a position where a lot of customers want us to haul their freight, and you know, we're getting pushed by customers to expand pretty rapidly. Right? They want to see us have 40, 50 trucks so that they can sort of just cut out these big carriers that they're not happy with, and just use us. But again, it sort of comes with the same problem. Like, you know, we become that big carrier, like, you're going to end up with the same problems. Like, you know, we're going to have to hire newer drivers, or, you know, again, like, I don't want to say, like, I hate saying, like, lower quality or lower caliber drivers, because it's a learned skill, not a fucking inherent trait. So, you know, any truck driver can become a good truck driver, right? But bringing on, people with less experience, or people with less skin in the game, or like, you know, aren't as invested in the career, so they're not paying enough attention or getting good enough at it, because you got to fill seats, right? So, like, the same problem will happen if we become expand into a 50 truck fleet. Like, well, now we got, you know, basically 32 trucks we got to fill. And again, of the 18 trucks we have here, only about 5 or 6 of them are company trucks. Overwhelmingly, this company is mostly owner-operators. So, you know, you're same thing. I mean, you can hire a bunch of owner-operators, but even that, like, a lot of guys are getting out of owning a truck, right? I mean, hell, our newest employee, right, he owns a truck, but he's driving a company truck, and he's selling his company or his own truck, because he's like, I fucking hate it. Like, I can't do it anymore, right? It's too much bullshit. I think he'd be maybe happier to actually own a truck here. His truck's pretty good on fuel. He's got a 680, and, you know, it'll do the job just fine. But he wants out of owning a truck. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm the last person that should be telling anybody how to run their career. So I didn't really comment on it when he was talking to me about it. But, like, you know, it's what was I gonna say? It's kind of a tricky thing, right? So I think here, like I said, we wouldn't be able to sort of handle having that many trucks. And, like, it comes with, like, so it's funny, this is a tangent. Like the today, for example, right? I stopped at there's technically it's a scale just south of the town of Fergus in Ontario, Canada. And the scale, it's know how to word it. It's like you see them very, very occasionally in the States, but not very often, where it's what you'd call like a temporary scale or a portable scale. So they pull off like a scale, but there's no building, there's no actual scale in the ground. It's just a pull off with a porta potty. So occasionally, like Ontario DOT will show up, set some trucks up, turn the lights on, and like bring a portable scale to weigh trucks, or they'll do like paperwork checks and shit. This is gonna hurt. That was a big bump. It's 99% of the time it's closed. It's not a very commonly used scale. But again, it's got a porta potty, so because there's really nowhere to stop and use the restroom from from my house till actually a fair bit after I get on the highway. It's a good spot to just, stop and use the restroom real quick before, carrying on to get onto the the highway. So I pulled off and a Jeep followed me off. I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, it's either somebody who's mad because I had to slow down to hit the scale, like to get into the scale, and they had to slow down because they were behind me. Then I saw a guy who was getting in with paperwork. I thought it was maybe a map. I'm like, oh, this is worse. He's going to ask me for directions. Like, I know how to get places, but I don't know road names or anything. I just know how to get there. So the interstates are a little different, but like roads themselves, I forget the names all the time. Turns out it's one of the organizers for the Clifford Truck Show in Ontario, Canada. Kind of admiring the truck, wanted to give me a couple of flyers because the show's coming up next month, and sort of invite me to the show. And he asked about the company, and it was interesting because it almost sounded rude if it wasn't for the fact that I know where he's coming from. He had said just maybe like if you guys are coming, like keep the slow put trucks to a minimum. And I was like, fuck, I don't even think we really have any slow put trucks. We got one guy with an older 386, but that's almost the oldest truck in the fleet, so you'd almost say it fucking gets a pass. Like, we got a couple of 990s. 990s are fine. Just don't want to see like Cascadias and stuff. Worried about guys coming in with a fleet of, Cascadias showing up. I guess because I didn't go last year, what they're running into is guys, they'll come across one or two dudes working for a company with a long hood truck, whether it's an owner operator or a company guy with a reward truck, and then they're like, oh, you should come out to the truck show. And then the company sends, again, because a lot of these companies want to show off their fleets, right? They'll show up with fucking 15 Cascadias, and like the Clifford Truck Show is very, very much geared around old school stuff, right? So one of the biggest things with it has an entire dedicated cab over section. Right, so it's very, like, even like you said, they want long hood trucks. Obviously, the older the better. And if it's a cab over, God, please take your truck there. But like they don't, like there are other truck shows like Matt's and stuff like that where guys will show up with whatever. But even Matt's is like, I don't like being a guy that like, fucking dressing up a Cascadias like lipstick on a pig. Like, if you're proud enough of the truck you're driving to put the work into it and keep it clean, like that's a guy with a beat up piece of shit fucking 379, a guy with a spotless Cascadia that's tastefully done up is gonna rank higher in my eyes than a guy with a fucking beat to shit claptrap 379. I don't give a fuck how fucking old that 379 is. If the dude doesn't give a fuck about it, at that point, really, like, he's lost any like, what's the word? Like he's lost any sort of like reputation he can fucking possibly garner at that point, right? Like, it's somebody that keeps their, even if it's like we had a guy, it was years ago, I worked at a company, again, it was owner operating with my dad and I, and we had all 389s, the entire fleet was 389s, even the company guys. And there was one guy that hauled like off and on for us. And same thing, he had a Cascadia, he owned his own truck, he owned his own trailer, so he had his own authority. And that Cascadia was fucking spotless. Like 100% of the time I saw that truck, it was spotless, right? That dude took such good care of that truck. It's like, you know what? Like, yes, it's not a 389 or a 379 or a W9, right? It's very much a truck. Like the guy very much bought the truck to make money off of it as a profitable business expense or business venture, right? But he put work into keeping it clean. He put work into making it look nice, right? The tires were always fucking buttered, like, you know what I mean? Like the truck always looked good, and it's like that guy to me is way better of a trucker than, again, like there's a guy I see a couple times, and the dude's super nice, right? I run into him actually at the truck stop I started this video at, and he hauls like steel or something back and forth, and he's saying he's got an old, I don't know what friggin' year it is, like early 90s 379. It doesn't even have a visor on. Like there's not a straight panel on the fucking thing. The paint is matte black because it's so faded. Like again, it's a beat up piece of shit, and it's like that at one point was a nice truck, one of the nicest trucks, right? You had the Golden 379 Square Dash. I fucking love them things. But whether it's just general apathy because it's not his truck and the company doesn't care, or whether it's his truck and he doesn't care, like the thing has become a piece of shit. So it's like that, you know, again, he's a nice guy, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit there and shitbag the person as a person. But like, the guy that keeps his Cascadia spotless, to me, is more dedicated to the job or to the lifestyle, whatever the fuck you want to call it, than the guy that drives a beat up old shitbox, like, or a beat up old 379. Like just because it has a long hood doesn't magically make it better than, you know, like the shittiest 379 is not just inherently better than the cleanest Volvo. Do you know what I mean? Like, how much work somebody puts into it is very much, you know, as important or more important than like what the truck is, right? Again, I can see why people sort of don't think that way, because it isn't that common to find really clean, you know, well, I should say well maintained, because maintenance is subjective. Usually it's not stuff you see. But like really clean Cascadias, whatever, right? They're almost always, again, like the one I just passed, for example, right? I mean, it's a Canadian one, right? The guy has probably never done anything to it cosmetically. The company is very obviously like what we said, like when I say an Indian carrier, that's again that's sort of probably being mildly racist. But they were like, it was like Royal Freight or something like that. And again, a lot of these companies would be like Gold Star Freight or A Plus Freight or Royal Freight or Falcon something. There's always a lion or a fucking bird of prey in the name, and it's like, again, it's Cascadia. Like the driver himself, it's just a piece of equipment or whatever. So he doesn't, you know, I mean, the inside might be clean, don't get me wrong, but it's not like the guy's going out of his way to make the outside like look any better than what the company gave him. You know what I mean? Which, like I said, it's not really disparaging that, because that's, again, like some companies don't want you to do anything to trucks and stuff like that. I get it, but there's still, you know, it's sort of hard. Like that's the sort of truck that somebody, like a lot of guys see, and that's why like people have that sort of like poo-poo impression of Cascadia. So like, you know, Prime or something in the States here, where like, you know, Prime will do some like good colors and like some interesting sticker designs, but again, the trucks are all still like fleet trucks that don't look any different than each other. And again, they're driven by, I mean, there's some really passionate dudes at Prime, don't get me wrong. There's also some real fucking idiots. And the idiots are the ones people see the most, because they're all the ones on fucking YouTube. And again, not to shit on, I'm sure there's people who may watch this and love some Prime truck driver that does YouTube and be really upset. I'm sorry, but some of them are a little cringe, okay? I mean, I guess I'm no better, but, you know, it's just, you know, like I learned, like it kind of, maybe I'm just, like, irritated with Prime. Not that I was ever going to work for Prime, because they don't have a Canadian division, and I'm not going through all of the hoops to work for an American carrier. But, like, they, like, I can't remember what it was. I was looking at, like, I think it was building a Prime truck in ATS, because ATS released Missouri, and while it's not Prime branded, they did actually include Prime's yard in whatever the hell Which is kind of neat. So I was like, oh man, I'm gonna do like a Prime truck and like role play type of thing, and start a career at Prime, and then eventually buy my own truck and get into the RP owner operator thing. So then I was like looking at Prime trucks to like make sure that I spec'd the truck correctly. And then there was some information about owner operators for Prime. And it's like, if you want to be an owner operator for Prime, the truck has to be like a 2024 or newer, 2023 or newer right now. Have a wheelbase of no longer than 244 inches. And like there were some other requirements. It's like you have to have a Cascadia or a 579 basically. Maybe a T680 or like the Western Star or the 5700 I just passed, but like that's it. You know what I mean? Like, it's very much, if you want to be an owner operator of Prime, you have to already own literally a Prime truck, right? So it's like, okay, that's a little goofy. But Prime has, I guess, a system that they've decided works for them. And they're very strict on how they want to, how they want their company to run. I guess it's, nobody can say, oh, my truck can't get in there, I'm too long or anything. Everybody's truck's, the maximum length of anybody's truck is the fucking, just about the shortest you can spec a truck with a full-size bunk on it. So, pretty limited. I mean, I don't know. Again, I guess there's somebody in there with a 389 with a 244 wheelbase that, they could put Prime in a situation where, like, fuck, you can't not hire this guy at this point. At least not based on the truck, but it's the same thing. Like, I don't think if you're going to work for Prime, when you're talking, like, just simple logistics, like, to me, I mean, if you're going to live in front of a dry box, like, it is kind of silly to put a truck like this in front of it. Like, I know guys do it all the time, but it's the same. You see a lot of guys, like West Coast guys, with, like, stretched out trucks with, like, a 48-foot spread axle reefer, right? But, like, guys doing the Prime thing would very likely not be, you wouldn't want to do it with a long hood like 389 or 379. I feel like at that point, like, it's sort of, I don't know, and, you're at that point you're throwing fuel economy out the window. And again, if you're following Prime's rules and driving around with a 244 wheelbase, like, yes. A 389, 379, and 244 wheelbase, I would argue, again, unless it's a piece of shit, is probably still cooler than a Cascadia or a T680, right? But at that point, you are kind of needlessly throwing money away, right? Like, yes, I could be more aerodynamic with a T680 doing this job, but tankers are already, like, I'm not really, like, the trailer itself is not really any taller than my truck is right now, right? It's a little bit, but it's not crazy. So having a truck that's like 3 feet taller than the trailer isn't actually going to really save me anything. The hood is really the only big thing that'll save you money. Owning a Cascadia or something to do this kind of work, or at least like a slippery truck, right? But, again, that's, like, I don't know, that's just preference or whatever you want to call it. Let's see how this truck stop looks. First time I ever stayed here, the truck, 2 trucks away from me, burnt to the ground. Luckily, I got my truck out of there before it burnt to the ground, and I tried to, stop his truck from burning to the ground. Unfortunately, couldn't, because he was already well underway before I managed to get there with a fire extinguisher. There's definitely a bunch of parking spots. Not my, like, I come here a lot. Like, I've come here a fair few times and come in relatively early. So again, it's a Petro I'm staying at. The Petro's got basically 2 different parking lots. So there's the one there that you can see kind of behind the building, and then there's one straight ahead of me here to the right. So I've never even actually gone to the other side of the parking lot here. Where that fuel tanker is, not this car hauler with that red, it's a 579, the fuel tanker. That's where I've normally parked. It is a parking spot. It's not like a, I'm being a shit ass or anything like that. But it's the end spot, right? Again, I guess you get the odd ding dong like this guy that has decided to park there. But, But again, there's a ton of angled spots too here. Like, it's not a big deal. I just typically find, like, I don't really like the Petros aren't bad. Again, because all the parking spots are angled, especially, it makes life a lot easier as far as getting in. But this lot is kind of actually fuck. What am I doing? Do I want to go that way or do I want to go this way? There's a bunch of spots here still, and there's nothing in front of me. Again, I don't really care where I park right now because my end spot is gone. There's not really a huge motivator for me to pick anywhere like different, other than this spot here. Ooh, this is technically a sort of an end spot. This might be good. So this white truck, this is the fucking end up. The spot, there's technically a median or whatever the hell you want to call it, just a line. So some douchebag could probably try to get in there, I guess. But the biggest thing is it's just a parking lot in front of it. So when somebody inevitably tries to back in next to me tonight, they don't have, unless somebody literally parks and blocks the fucking laneway, they won't have a truck in front of them. So they can do what I just did and set themselves up for a straight back. What I'm also going to do is sort of crowd again, it's when I say a median, it's not like a concrete pad or anything. It's literally a line drawn in the ground. It's sort of crowded so that nobody gets the idea to try to park in there. I mean, it's a Saturday night, so theoretically nobody's really gonna, take this spot anyways. Again, there's not that many trucks here. I mean, hell, all the freaking pull-through spots straight in front of me are still open. But I want to, again, the spot, technically, there's a pole and some room between me and the next guy. It's a straight back. Again, the guy next to me is a straight back. Because that's what I've found is, like, I've gotten, I don't know, more experienced, is I'm less concerned with getting myself into a parking spot and much more concerned with how the person who parks next to me is going to get into the parking spot, right? If they're going to have to really fuck around to get in next to me, then I don't, even if my spot was easy, I don't necessarily want to be there, right? So with this spot, like I said, unless that whole row across fills up and people start parking in literally the roadway in front of me, any truck that parks directly to my right will have a straight back, right? So, and again, the guy to my left, it's the same thing. He's got a straight pull out and a straight back if somebody else replaces him, and I've got more room between me and him because of the median. Again, there's technically physically enough room that a truck could try to back in there, but it's Saturday. I really hope that I suspect that this truck won't, like this stop won't fill up that much, so somebody parks there, it's because they just felt like it for some stupid reason. I don't know. So, but anyways, I guess I'm back. I got a thing to record with again, so we're gonna give this the old college try a little bit more and see what happens. So, stay tuned for more adventures. Be good.